Hello, everybody. Today I wanted to give you a brief overview of one of our Unit 5 topics, which is verbs of motion in Russian. And this can be found on pages 170 to 174 of the chapter in the textbook. It looks, if we open up the textbook, it begins here, going verbs, or in other words, verbs of motion. Let's take a look at how the book breaks this down for us. So Russian distinguishes between going by foot and by vehicle. Sasha идет в библиотеку. Maria едет в Москву. Make sure to use ехать when vehicular travel is required. For example, for travel to another city, another state, another country, or out of town, we would say мы едем. For example, мы едем в Москву, мы едем на дачу, мы едем в Россию. When going locally, use the walking verb et. So I guess, by the way, my voice is I have a very sore throat, so I'm talking a little bit funny today, if you can't tell. But in any case, when going locally, use the walking verb et, unless you want to emphasize the use of vehicles. So мы идем в библиотеку. Куда ты едешь? Я еду в библиотеку. So these are our two verbs. Идти, which is to go by foot, and ехать, which is the verb to go by vehicle. And in English, we have only one verb to go. But in Russian, there's the verb to go by foot and the verb to go by vehicle, and they're separate verbs entirely, right? So they have separate forms. So we say я иду, ты идешь, он идет, мы идем, вы идете, они идут. Я еду, ты едешь, он едет, мы едем, вы едете, они едут. Let's give these a try. Fill in the blanks with the correct form of et or ехать in this exercise. And what you'll want to pay attention to is from the context of the meaning of the sentence. Does this seem like a sentence that needs the verb to go by foot? Or is it a sentence that needs the verb to go by vehicle? And then, of course, we need to find the right form, conjugation form, to match the subject. So let's do the first one together, and then I'll ask you to pause and give it a try. Витя, Маша говорит, что в субботу ты blank в США. Vitya, Masha says that on Saturday you are going to the USA, to the USA. Да, я, yes, I am going, etc. So in the context, based on the meaning of the sentence, does this seem like a sentence that would need you to say by foot or by vehicle? Clearly by vehicle, right? Because you're traveling to another country. So Vitya, Masha говорит, что в субботу ты. This is the vehicle verb. This is the T form. Good. So ты едешь в США. Да? Витя, Маша говорит, что в субботу ты едешь в США. Да, я еду. Я еду. Как интересно. Может быть, ты... Лара, извини, На урок и очень опаздываю. I am going to my class and I'm really late. So this makes us stop and think for a moment. If these are two people intersecting in the street and they're having this conversation, then Vitya is probably going by foot or by car. He's probably going by foot, right? So here it's going to be Lara, извини, я иду на урок и очень опаздываю. So this is the by foot verb, right? Good. Okay, so go ahead and hit pause and see if you can answer the rest of the questions in the exercise, and then we'll come back together and check the answers. Okay. Now that you've done that, assume you've gotten through 2 through 8 now. Let's take a look, and I'll give you my answers. Okay, so мы сейчас blank в библиотеку. We are going now to the library. Well, and this is a key point, so pay attention to this. Sometimes there's ambiguity, there's a gray area where basically it could be either one, right? So if you, and this is one of those cases. So you could say here, мы сейчас идем в библиотеку. We are going now by foot to the library, or мы сейчас едем в библиотеку. And it could be either one, depending on what what the situation is, whether you're going by foot or by vehicle. It's not clear in this exercise either way, depending on what you want to emphasize, right? So, 3. Костя едет в Москву. Костя едет в Москву, да? Because, of course, Kostya is probably not walking to Moscow, right? He's probably driving in a car. And, of course, it's the he form because it's Kostya, so we need едет, да? Костя едет в Москву. Саша и Ваня едут в Одессу. Sasha and Vanya are going to Odessa, which is a city in Ukraine. Again, out of town travel, we use the vehicle verb and so on. Okay, last one. Sonia идет в кино. Sonia is going to the theater, movie theater. This could be either actually, but in this context, probably more likely by foot, right? Okay, so as far as verbs of motion go, that's one very important aspect of verbs of motion, but unfortunately there's more to it than that. Verbs of motion in Russian. Okay, and if you read this section, I assume you've probably already read it by now, then you're aware that there's a couple other things we need to keep in mind. One, as we said, is going by foot versus by vehicle, right? We have these two verbs, идти and ехать. This one's by foot, this one's by vehicle, right? So we want to learn these two verbs. We'll maybe write them out 5 times each, their conjugation forms, to start to memorize how to conjugate them. So that's a good start. But there's 2 other very important things we need to know about verbs of motion in Russian. The second thing is that verbs of motion are used with accusative case, which is a case that we learned at the end of last semester, right? So this is why in the examples here that we did, Kostya is going to Moskvu, Sasha and Vanya is going to Odessu, right? Those are Kostya едет в Москву. The word for Moscow is Moskva, да? But with verbs of motion, we put the place to which you're going in the accusative case. This is just a rule. It's always how it works. So just memorize it. It's a hard and fast rule. So Kostya едет в Москву. Now, of course, what we've said about accusative case is that it's, and go back and review that briefly just to refresh your memory. But it's not one of the harder cases to use because masculine, neuter, and plural in the accusative case just stays the same, right? So those three. So if the place to which you're going is masculine, neuter, or plural, it's going to stay the same. It's not going to change. So for example, Sonia идет кино. The word is kino, movie theater, and it stays kino because it's neuter. It doesn't need to change, okay, in the accusative case. But the point is, anytime there's motion, verb of motion, the place to which you're going is in the accusative case, okay? I'll give you a couple sentences to figure out and see if you can put them in the accusative case. So, этот студент идет в библиотеку. Моя мама идет, и папа идут в магазин. So, take a moment, hit pause here, see if you can put these into accusative case for motion. Okay, now that you've done that, so this student is going to the library, right? How do we put library in the accusative case? Biblioteku. And again, if you need to review accusative case, please do so. I think it's in unit 4, maybe in unit 3, one of those two. My mom and dad are going to the store. Моя мама и папа идут в магазин. So this one is masculine, it stays the same. Okay, so that's rule number 2 for verbs of motion. All of these locations that people are going to are in the accusative case that you'll notice, right? So you can either use the by foot or by vehicle verb, and you always have to use the accusative case with verbs of motion. And the final thing, now this is the hardest and the trickiest part in Russian, or the part that's the least intuitive, I would say, for us American English speakers. In Russian, verbs of motion, there's something called unidirectional versus multi-directional verbs, or motion, I guess. Unidirectional motion versus multi-directional motion. Let's take a look at how the book breaks this down for us. I go versus I'm going. Unidirectional and multi-directional verbs of motion, or verbs of going. Introduction. This is on page 172, 173. Every day I go to class. This is considered multi-directional because when you say you do something every day, you go, you come back, you go, you come back. It's not one simple unidirectional motion. It's a series of round trips, right? When you say you go somewhere every day. So you're going to use the multi-directional verb here. And actually, so in Russian, these are unidirectional, iti and yechet, and then there's going to be multi-directional verbs hadit, by foot, and ездить, by vehicle. So there's really these 4 verbs of motion in Russian. If you want to break it down this way, you can think of it this way. by foot, iti, or hadit, multidirectional verb, unidirectional verb. This probably won't all make sense right away, but stick with me here. By vehicle, we have the verb ехать, which is the unidirectional verb. You have the verb ездить, which is used for multidirectional motion. What that actually means, multidirectional, unidirectional, let's take some time to try to absorb that. But the point is that there's 4 verbs for verbs of motion in Russian. 2 of them are by foot, 2 of them are by vehicle. 2 of them are unidirectional and 2 of them are multidirectional. Right? So we have to kind of learn when to use which. Okay. Like I said, not the simplest topic in Russian, but once you get it, it's very manageable. It's very doable. So again, every day I go to class, this is a multidirectional verb. So we would use hadit because that is the multidirectional verb by foot. Okay. I am going to class. This is unidirectional because I'm on my way to class now. One place, one direction. If it's in the present tense right now, you can only be going in one direction in the present tense. Like, right now I am going, right? Up here, this is present tense, but it's every day I go to class. It's talking about repeated actions and round trips. So that's different. So I'm going to class now. This is unidirectional, so we would use iti, the unidirectional verb. Every day at 9 a.m., I go to class. Now this is where it really gets frustrating because you're thinking, oh, okay, every day this is a round trip, a repeated action like up here, so this should be multidirectional. Nope. This is also unidirectional because, yes, I go many times, but it's at 9 a.m. on the dot, I'm only going in one direction. So because when you specify a specific time at 9 a.m., you're only doing a unidirectional motion, that is also using this verb, et, unidirectional. I think this will start to make sense once we practice it more, okay? Now look at what Russian does. Every day I go to class. Каждый день я хожу на занятия. So this is this verb, ходить. Every day I go to class. So because we say every day, and it's a round trip, and it's a repeated action, we use the multidirectional verb. Каждый день я хожу на занятия. I'm going to class now. We know this is unidirectional because when you're talking about doing something right now in this moment, you can only go in one direction, right? So я сейчас иду на занятия. So this is the verb идти. Okay. Every day at 9 a.m. I go to class. I set out for class. Also unidirectional because we're talking about specifically at 9 a.m. You're only going in one direction at 9 a.m. Okay, so каждый день в 9 часов я иду на занятия. Okay. So, as the book says, the good news is in this unit, you have to be able to distinguish directionality only for 2 forms. Я иду, I'm going there by foot, versus я хожу, I'm going on foot, round trip. You'll learn to use the other multidirectional forms of go in units 8 and 10. So we're going to keep things pretty simple in this unit, but I just want to make you aware that Russian verbs in motion, they have these three aspects. One is verbs by foot versus by vehicle. One is that the place to which you're going is always put into the accusative case. And the third aspect is that there is this understanding in Russian, which we don't have in English, right, of unidirectional motion versus multidirectional motion. And so those verbs are different. So this is the unidirectional by foot. This is the multidirectional by foot. This is the unidirectional by vehicle, multidirectional by vehicle. So let's give this a try. 527, see if we can understand. Let's do the first one together. I am now going to the park. So fill in the correct form of haju or idu. Haju is multidirectional and idu is unidirectional. Okay. Я сейчас иду. Since it's now, this moment, we can only go in one direction. So in the present. So я сейчас иду в парк. Okay. Hit pause here and see if you can do 2 through 4, and then we'll come back together. Okay, now that you've done that, я каждый день, and again, this really depends on the meaning of the sentence. And so if you don't understand some of the words in the sentence, you need to look them up in the glossary or, review the vocab. So every day I go to the park. Каждый день, every day. Okay. Every day implies repeated action and round trips. So it has to be multidirectional. So this is going to be каждый день я хожу в парк. This one was иду, unidirectional. This one is хожу, multidirectional, because of the meaning, right? So at 8 o'clock, I go to my lecture. At 1 o'clock, I go home. So when we talk about at a specific time, it's unidirectional. So, в 8 часов я иду на лекцию. В час я иду домой. And when you tell a narrative, like first I go here, then I go there, then I go there, each leg of that trip, each leg of that narrative is also only in one direction, right? So that is all going to be unidirectional verbs. Ты сейчас идешь? Идешь в библиотеку? Are you going now to the library? So this is иду, идешь. Да, а потом я иду домой. А вы часто ходите в библиотеку? Часто. Я хожу каждую пятницу. So do you go often to the library? Yes, I go often. I go every Friday. So again, these two are unidirectional, and then this last one is multidirectional because we're talking about repeated action on a certain day. Okay. All right. So here is a summary of the topic. Summary table of Go verbs for beginning Russian. And they even include here the future, which we're not learning right now, but they're just providing it for you if you want to take a look at it. And they give you the past as well, the past forms. Okay. So fill in the blanks and use this chart and fill in the blanks with the appropriate form of идти, ходить, or ехать. Let's do a couple of these together. So number 1, I am going now. Сейчас means now, right? To my lesson or my class of Russian language. If you're going now, that means you're going in a unidirectional. Okay. And is this by foot or by vehicle? Well, it depends. It depends on what you mean. So it could be either. It could be either идти or it could be ехать. So depends on the context. But let's say we're going by vehicle. Я сейчас еду на урок русского языка. Could it be ходить, the third verb? No, it could not, because you cannot say now with a multi-directional verb. It doesn't work. But number two, every day I go to my Russian language class. Again, if it's every day, it's a repeated round trip, you have to use a multi-directional verb. So, я каждый день хожу на урок русского языка. So this one's хожу. Okay. Okay. Go ahead and hit pause and do the rest. See if they make sense to you. And we'll stop there for today. I hope that was helpful, and you can always reach out to me, for clarification. Happy to give more examples or help you with a particular sentence if you're not sure. So, all right, have a good weekend.